Paragraph 4. In 1879, at the Battle of White Hill 1, Geronimo knew that the troopers would waste their ammunition. The subject right away is going to be Geronimo in some sort of a battle, the Battle of White Hill. And the type of paragraph is probably going to be a description or perhaps even some type of chronological course of action that happened to Geronimo during the battle, would be my guess. With that, let's take our next step and read through the remainder of the paragraph and underline repeat words, transitions, and pronouns. R. The attack was so sudden that the Mexicans, running first this way and that, then that, became so confused that in a few minutes we had killed them all. So we, not sure who that is, but I assume that's perhaps Geronimo and the Indians, and I imagine they were fighting the Mexicans if this was a battle. T. We, again we, I assume that refers to the Indians, had been fighting ever since about 1 o'clock and about the middle of the afternoon. Seeing that we were making no further progress, I gave the sign for the advance. I presume is Geronimo and the pronoun there, and also there's the concept of since about 1 o'clock they've been fighting. So something happened earlier in the fighting. I imagine that's not the first follow-on in this case. Q. However, so clearly there's a turn of events. However, it was impossible to get very close to them in this way, and I'm going to assume them refers to the Mexicans. And I, Geronimo, I assume that's Geronimo, pronoun, deemed it best to lead a charge against them. So in the previous sentence, we had something about giving the sign for the advance, and now we're lead a charge against them. So those are probably related, worth underlining. S, the war whoop sounded, and we leaped forward from every stone over the Mexicans' dead horses, fighting hand to hand. So again, repeat word of the Mexicans, which we've also seen in pronouns. And if there was a charge or an advance, the war whoop and the sound might be the detailed action of actually doing that, it appears. U, soon we had killed all their horses. Again, we've got we, refers to the Indians. Soon might come after something before that, certainly shortly thereafter. We'll have to take a look. But the soldiers who would lie behind these, their horses, so we see a repeat of the word horses, and shoot at us while we had killed several Mexicans, we had not yet lost a man. What are the most obvious sentence pairs in putting the ordering together here? First connecting sentences I like are U and Q. Soon we had killed all their horses, but the soldiers would lie behind these and shoot at us. We had not lost a man. However, Q, that implies a change or a transition. It was impossible to get very close to them in this way. So they're able to shoot down their horses, but they couldn't get any closer because clearly they were lying behind their horses and shooting back. And I deemed it best to lead a charge against them. And perhaps T is a likely follow-on or a good connection after U. So now we killed their horses, we're shooting at them. We had been fighting ever since about 1 o'clock, and about the middle of the afternoon, seeing that we were making no further progress, I gave the sign for the advance. So at first, you deemed it best to lead a charge, and then realizing when you weren't making progress, a lot of time had passed, Geronimo apparently gave the sign for the advance. And then S, the war whoop sounded and we leaped forward, or R, the attack was so sudden that the Mexicans began running. Well, before you have an attack, you logically have to have a war whoop sound and everybody leaps forward. So S seems to follow the sign for advance. In fact, the sign for advance is the war whoop. So if we didn't underline those, we probably should have connected those two phrases almost as repeat words. Sign for the advance and the war whoop, which is what the sign for advance was. And we leap forward from every stone over the Mexicans' dead horses, fighting hand to hand. The attack, now R makes sense. The attack, after the war whoop, was so sudden that the Mexicans running first this way and then that became so confused that in a few minutes we had killed them all. And of course that sounds like a decent summary. When they're all dead, there's not much more that would happen in that battle. So in fact, it looks like U, even though we said it might not be the first sentence, looks like U is the first follow-on sentence. And the ordering is soon we killed all their horses. However, transitioning, and again I'm going to review the logical structure as I put these back to order. They killed all the horses, But that wasn't good enough because the Mexican soldiers were shooting back. It transitions to it was impossible to get closer. So Geronimo knew he had to make a charge. At first he knew the charge. Then after a period of time, he realized he couldn't advance further. And the next step was to actually give the sign for the advance. And the sign for advance was the war whoop. And that resulted in hand-to-hand fighting, or the attack, which is so sudden that the Mexicans seemed to be overwhelmed. So logically, I like the structure wrapping that up. Shoot down the horses, can't get close enough. They knew they had to attack. Eventually, when they couldn't get any further, they did give the sign for the attack with the war whoop, and then they attacked and won. So I like the ordering UQ TSR.